gotta take this. Hey, I'm kind of in the middle of something. Can I call you back in a little bit? Well, yeah, it is pretty important. Okay, fine. What? You know what, God? That is kind of presumptuous of you. I'm obviously working here, and later I have to wash my hair, so I can't really go to Canaan right now. Look, I gotta go. I'll call you back. Okay, bye. Sorry about that. Hi, that was the Lord. Oh, hang on. Sheesh. This does not constitute as later, and calling me from your work number isn't going to fool me.
Reminder, you have an appointment at noon to travel to the Great Tree of Morah.
Sarah, I cancel appointment.
Okay, Princess. I found this for directions to Shechem. 6,412 miles. Turn left.
I'm sorry. This is annoying. You've given up your valuable time to council camp, and I'm sure you have cabins to prep and things to be...
Reminder, you need to pack all your belongings and travel to the land the Lord has shown you. You had better get going.
Haha, this has been a dramatization. In an actual call from God, you might want to consider going. But you've experienced that, haven't you? After all, you're here. I don't know if you heard the voice of the divine telling you that if you council camp, you will become a great nation and your descendants will outnumber the stars in the sky and all. But you've taken the chance that being here this summer will matter to someone. You've journeyed to be here, to take on this pack of unknown campers, exhausting hours, thankless tasks, stupid songs. Because why exactly? You do know there are plenty of other ways of working really hard and making little to no money, right? Here's my suspicion. You're here because God matters to you. God's people matter to you. You are aware that God has entered into a relationship with humanity and has some expectation of you to help make this world a more blessed place to be. In today's story, God calls to Abram to take his wife Sarai to an unknown place. He is to leave his homeland and trust that God will fulfill a huge promise, that God will make them a blessing and will bless all of the other nations of the earth through them. Seems pretty stupid, seeing as how Sarai is barren and all. So, not likely, God. They took a big risk, kind of like you did, by spending your week here at camp. But here's another thought for you. Your campers are taking a big risk too. Some of their friends tease them for going to church camp. Some of their parents can't afford camp. Some of them are giving up other summer activities to be here this week with you. Some of them don't want to be here. Some of them have traveled far. But some of them will have their lives transformed this week. Some of them will learn to be a blessing. Some of them will find for the first time in their life that they've found others who are wanting to be a blessing and to speak to God too. And some of them will make friendships that will last forever. And that is what God has called you to be a part of. I gotta go. Want to come with? Okay, campers, I hope everyone slept really well through that terrifying thunderstorm we had last night. Elizabeth, I am so sorry to hear that Ashley fell out of her top bunk and onto yours after that mouse scurried across her pillow and into your sleeping bag. Bummer. Okay, who is ready to tell their most intimate, vulnerable, most tender parts of their hearts with this small group of absolute strangers? Come on, campers, don't make me force you. Sound familiar? The first day of camp has a very specific task: to break down the barriers of communication and to create an atmosphere of trust and safety. With strangers, with insecurities, in the woods, plus hormones, plus sleeping bag mouses. Yeah, good luck with that. Okay, Ashley, I want you to go tell Elizabeth all of the really embarrassing things you're afraid of, and then ask God to forgive you for being afraid. You'll do pretty much anything to make your campers feel safe and comfortable, true? But there is so much more you have to do than act silly and goofy to make them feel safe. They have to trust you. They have to believe you care. You have to remember their names. Learn their names. Trust is one of the first things that a baby learns from his or her parents. It is deep and primal and has nothing to do with falling off a picnic table backwards blindfolded into a group of 9-year-olds' arms. That is not real trust. It's fun. and it can help build trust, but that's not real trust. Real trust is being able to say, anywhere you will go, I will go. Where you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. That's real trust. Ruth had no reason to believe that God was working within her life or through her relationships. Famine and death surrounded her. Imagine if her story had ended there. Story time! Okay, campers. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful princess who lived in a tower, but nothing ever happened to her because she never trusted anyone or anything ever. The end. Whoa, okay, whoa, okay. But then she met a beautiful, kind, smart, talented camp counselor who taught her that it was okay to fail and to do things differently and to trust that God was good and showed her that she was loved no matter what. And the princess grew to be an exciting person who went on awesome adventures and lived happily ever after. Adding an element of trust to your story can make all the difference. Having the courage to trust that even in the midst of your story, God is at work. Human relationships are an adventure. Ruth's story is seriously courageous. I mean, here's a girl who really went out on a limb. In her unpredictable world, so much had gone wrong that trusting anyone ever again would be terrifying. But out of devotion, she changes her nationality, follows her mother-in-law to a strange new place, flirts shamelessly with a very powerful community leader, and then goes on to have a baby who has a baby who becomes king. David. Right. Ruth's story could have ended with, Ruth and Orpah listened to Naomi and were never heard from again. The end. But it doesn't. And Ruth's adventure is the exact same adventure that we are living right now. I don't mean like our adventure. No, I mean for real. It is the exact same adventure. If Ruth hadn't trusted, there would be no Christian community. And if there was no Christian community, there would be no church camp. So today is your day to take your place in the Christian story. Be Ruth-like courageous today. Trust people just for the adventure of it. Trust others knowing that God is doing something so special with your part of the story. And sure, our stories might have their own fair share of demons and dragons. But by trusting in God, you'll all live happily ever after. Okay, maybe not always happily, but you'll live blessed ever after. Yeah, that's it. And together, they live blessed ever after. The end.
This is not the end of this, Colin. Be afraid. The prankster has not yet begun to prank. You are going down!
Welcome to day 3. Together, the courage to forgive. Okay, I can explain that. So, Colin and I have been going to camp together since back at Genesis Camp in '06. And this whole back and forth thing started there, where the counselors had a prank off. We learned so much from them that year. The one with the sticky notes. Oh, and the one with the balloon and the shaving cream. Oh, and then there's the one with the ketchup and the Jell-O. Do you know that one? You take ketchup and you take Jell-O and you take 5 drops of each and then you know what? Never mind. Anyways, now that we are the counselors, we are expert pranksters. We've learned each other's weaknesses and we pounce when the other lets his or her guard down. Unfortunately, that is exactly what I did about 20 minutes ago. There were other counselors in on Colin's gag, but let's just skip ahead to the part where I was left in the middle of the lake without a canoe. I know it was all in good fun. I mean, Colin is pretty much my best friend. But I think this one crossed the line. I think maybe this year it's time to lay down the duct tape and call a truce. My feelings are hurt. And one camper even said to me, "That's bullying behavior. You guys would get ISS if you did that at my school." Yeah, probably too far. I think it's really important as counselors to show the kids what it means to live in Christ's peace, to love one another and all that. I mean, here we are telling them the story of Joseph and his brothers and how forgiveness helps build community. And this is what they see. I really like the part in the Joseph story where he and his brothers finally hug it out. I mean, it took years and years for Joseph to get to that point of forgiving his brothers, and then to come up with a plot to show them that forgiveness. Sometimes it takes years and years to forgive. Sometimes it never happens. But I think God always uses forgiveness to help make the community stronger. You don't often hear stories of people saying, "But then I forgave him, and that's when things got really bad." If you read ahead in the Joseph story, about halfway through chapter 50 of Genesis, you'll come to a part near the end where their father, Jacob, dies. The brothers think that now with their dad gone, Joseph's going to retaliate against them for all the wrong they did him. So they throw themselves at his feet and beg for mercy. And Joseph pretty much says, "You guys, I forgave you years ago when I realized that God was using our story, both the good and the bad, to help protect our community. Don't worry, your kids will not go hungry. I got you." The forgiveness that Joseph showed his brothers was obvious to him because he looked around and realized that they had each other. God was working on their family the whole time. Wow, so that just completely blew my mind. I don't want anything to come between me and Colin's friendship. No good prank is worth that risk. And I've always suspected that God was using our friendship for the good. Seriously, especially when we became counselors. But even our bad times help make us who we are. And now I'm beginning to think that God is working in our friendship, like right now. Whoa, did you see that? That just happened. And actually, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm looking forward to letting Colin know I forgive him. It's like this whole new thing opening up right in front of us. Maybe I could do like a nice prank. Oh, I could fill his shoes with his favorite candy bars. He will never see that coming. Amen. Has this ever been you? So you're at the food court at the mall and all of your friends have already gotten back to the table and have their meals spread out on their wrapper plates, and you get back to the table and you're like, "You guys, you didn't have to wait for me." And they're like, "We're not waiting for you. We're praying. Not everything's about you, Lori Lee." Has that ever happened to you? Because that would be so weird because I've only met one other Lori Lee. But then I have this friend named Anthony, and he has this bizarre habit when we're at the food court. So we're all chomping down on our fries or salads. Some people eat salads. I'm not sure what that's about. But Tony would have his burger ready to go, everything laid out, and he would look across the table at no one and say, "Hey, Jesus, thank you so much for being here. You are so fantastic. I am so glad that you're in my life and in my friends' lives." And we'd be all, "Who is he talking to?" And then Tony would pick up his burger and start eating. Sometimes I think it's awkward being like obviously Christian out there in front of God and everybody. Well, it's not the God part. It's the everybody part. People just aren't used to the whole talking to Jesus when you can't see him thing. And it feels weird. And no one wants to feel weird. But on the other hand, I really like having food and friends and Jesus in my life. And it feels good to be able to acknowledge that. It's kind of like mealtime prayer. It's just something Christians do. So, if I were Shadrach, I'm not sure how much help I would be to Meshach and Abednego. I think I would be like, guys, can we just bow down? Is it really going to hurt anything? And the king would say, "Hey, Shadrach, your buddies said that they would rather go into the furnace than bow down to me. How do you feel about that?" I really don't know what I would do. But the thing is, the three of them stick together. They are 100% comfortable being completely themselves together. I think it's easier when you have friends that are strong and have faith, because you get all of their strength plus all of yours. So when I see Meshach and Abednego standing there beside me, I feel so much stronger than just me. And so did they. That story is seriously true. They were so much stronger than 3 people. They were 4 people. There's more than just you and your friends, because suddenly God shows up and is right there with you. How cool. So, it's Spider-Man Day here. What is Spider-Man Day, you ask? Well, we are learning the story of Esther and how she came into a very powerful position. One that happened to coincide with her people, the Jews, being under threat of decree allowing them to be slaughtered. So naturally, we thought, Persian Queen, Spider-Man. Okay, no. But remember the scene where Uncle Ben is dying and he tells Peter Parker the phrase that will change young Peter Parker's life forever? With great power comes great responsibility. And then the fearless hero accepts his destiny. Well, I'm not going to say that Esther's story is exactly like Spider-Man's, but she too has an uncle who speaks the truth to her about how she can use her mighty powers. This uncle, cousin, Mordecai, he himself was a very brave man, for he stood up for his faith tradition when so many others were demanding he bow down. He said to Esther, "Look, Esther, with great power comes great responsibility." Although actually, he said something even nicer. He said, "Maybe you have come to power for such a time as this." In other words, there are some people who have no power, who need people that do have power to speak up for them. And girl, you got power. I think sometimes it's hard to remember that we are all powerful. We are more powerful than someone, and those someones need someone like us to speak up for them. Even if, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, speaking up for means standing beside. And hey, speaking of the little guy, I gotta go. I gotta let 14 campers spray me with their spidey webs. Because when you're a counselor, it's what you do. No, I'm a little teapot. And no butt spelling either, just give them their mail. Counselors in training, am I right? These kids seem to get quite the power trip from being in charge of 72 third graders. So I walk into breakfast this morning and I see CIT Nicole with 17 campers lined up at the front of the dining hall. Nicole has a stack of colorful cards and letters from home. And the kids look like deer caught in the headlamps. Look, I remember how it used to be. I had to sing "Rise and Shine" if I wanted to get my letter from my well-meaning grandma. Part of me liked it. It was silly and fun, harmless ribbing. And I was never left out because my grandmother always wrote me. But then the thing with Jimmy happened. After he was done giving God the glory, glory, he sat down and opened the letter from his dad. It said, "Son, please call home when you get this. Show the director your letter and see if you can use the phone. I love you." So while the rest of us were opening up cards filled with confetti and stickers, Jimmy's face turned white. It was bad news from home. His dad didn't want to spoil his good time at camp. But that was the year that the mail call changed. Forever. And for very good reason. I think sometimes we do something one way for so long that we can no longer see that our way doesn't spread God's grace and love. I think it's safe to say that embarrassing a child is never a true expression of God's love. It's a different standard we hold ourselves to at camp, much different than what it was when I was in 3rd grade. Thank God it is. So I imagine Peter was confused, maybe even annoyed, when God changed the rules about what food could be eaten and what couldn't. I'm sure he didn't understand how something that had been so important in his life could all of a sudden be disregarded, and by God. But God reveals to Peter that there are bigger reasons for the change. Food laws and other labels of what's clean and unclean were actively keeping followers of Jesus from forming a Christian community. So not worth it. Why keep doing some family tradition when something so important is on the line? So if there are any counselors in training out there, enough with the humiliation and embarrassment. Find something today that you can change to help make camp even more like God's tender love. Well, it's back to the real world. Summer has flown by. It's back to Lori Lee Jones, college student by day, burger flipper by night. Sometimes it's weird taking orders from strangers at work, and I see some kids and I think, hey, those could be my kids. My kids from camp, not like my kids. Never mind. But if I had been ludicrous Lori Lee from Cabin 11, I would be sharing an inside joke with this kid. I would know his favorite color, if he preferred the top bunk or the bottom. I would know who his best friends were and his deepest prayers and highest hopes. I would know him, and he would know me. All I know now is that this kid wants a side salad instead of fries. Weird kid. But why can't I know him better? Why can't life be more like camp? I think God wants life to be more like camp too. On our last day of camp this year, we told the story of the women coming to the tomb to help prepare Jesus' body for burial. Except Jesus isn't dead, and the story is just beginning. Jesus gives his disciples the very difficult task of sharing the story of God's love, without fear, to all the nations. So instead of them saying, well, gosh, I sure will miss this Jesus fella. He was the best guy I ever met. Jesus says, you guys, I am right here. Now get out there and tell them what it's like. Change people's lives. Which is significantly cooler and much harder than preparing a body for burial. I think it's the most important thing Jesus says. Don't be afraid, go. I mean, how many times does the phrase, don't be afraid, go, get said in that last passage? Like 100 bazillion. Okay, like 3, but still, it's a lot. I think the best thing we can do with our fearlessness is to reach out to others and claim everyone as the beloved children of God. So maybe knowing that the weird kid wants a salad instead of fries is a good place to start. I mean, you gotta start somewhere, right? What if I started by seeing him as a beloved child of God and treating him like my brother and caring for him? I don't just have to save that for the summer. Jesus doesn't just stay at camp and wait for us to return. He says to take him with us and introduce him to others. Yep, salad kid. That's where I'm gonna start. What about you?